past 6 o'clock, then you can turn off the screen share so we just have faces.
Yep.
Setting up YouTube Live, and I'll turn on the recording also once we're all there. Okay, so can you see that it's live, guys?
Yeah.
Good, then I'm going to close this window and hopefully not destroy the connection.
Is John coming?
Yes.
He said he would, but oh, he's traveling also. He got back to the US just recently.
Okay.
Is anybody able to see? Gerard, are you able to see on the live stream if anybody's watching?
Let me see.
I don't know if you can see those details, or I have to go to my screen.
If you want to list it, I can collect also some the questions.
Yeah. I have two sitting here, but
1 second.
always the preference. I closed the window to YouTube, so I don't have confusion between the YouTube screen and the Zoom screen. With my record conversation meeting.
There's 2 watching now, and one of those is me.
Yeah, you're on live, man. This is a penalty you get for being helpful. Where's my record? Where'd my record? Record to this computer. Okay, so I'll do that in a minute. So we're live, but we're live on live stream, so that's there. I don't know if you can edit out the first couple of minutes on YouTube, probably. So it could just be us. That's cool. I'm all right. We're not recording, so I can flash up another window here without you guys seeing it. I want to go see if anybody wrote to me on LinkedIn about anything. Oh, no.
Some people joining already.
On YouTube?
On YouTube, yeah.
Hello, everybody on YouTube. Okay, so it could just
on my social media here.
Yeah, so I'm going to turn on the recording now, and as far as I guess we should wait till 6 o'clock. Yeah, I'm in Germany, so I have to be precise. I just mentioned the 2 questions Elisa Lorello asked. Do I think AI will enhance human collaboration or risk reducing the human-centric focus that Agile was built on?
Yeah, I have a question along those lines as well.
Everybody has the AI question, of course.
Yeah.
No, that was not Elisa's. 1 second. So now I have to. Oh, John Kern is in here.
Yay.
Good man. John, turn on your microphone and show your face.
Howdy.
You look just like you do on your skiing picture there, your profile. Indistinguishable.
Oh, I should go get my glasses. Oh, I have them. How you doing, Alistair?
Doing good, thank you. Just arrived here in Munich in time to turn on the screen. Okay.
Yeah. Thanks for reminding me.
Oh, I see. Greg had a different one, a very long one, but what was Greg's? Oh, it's a very, very long, but let me pull this out.
Okay, we are live. Oh, John.
We've been live for a while, man.
Yeah.
Okay, 1 sec. And
we have people
so
from
Greg,
Bangkok,
okay.
Zurich, Sweden,
We have 2
Sweden,
people entered the waiting room.
Chicago.
My good friends from Argentina, Jerónimo and Fernando. Wonderful. This is going to be good. This is just the best people here tonight, is all I have to say. Jerónimo, you can turn on your, you can mute Fernando.
Hello, how are you?
So good. And Jerónimo, unmask yourself. John's on the treadmill. He's going to burn some calories while we do all of this.
Yeah.
All right, it is now. I'm going to just turn on the recording finally here.
Hi, Alistair.
Hey,
Great to see
Geronimo.
you.
Awesome. All right, so somebody else may come and it'll pop up, but I vote that we just go ahead and get started. We're recording, we're live. So John, what I had in mind is there's certain things that I always want to lay down about the prehistory of the manifesto. So I want to use this like now when we were in Munich last time, did I do that? You hear me go all through the three communities of conversation?
I don't recall. We might not have covered that. So yeah,
right.
I always cite you and Uncle Bob as being like the progenitors. That's my and
Yeah.
I caveat it with, but I'm not really sure.
Nah.
But I think Alistair and Bob had a joint idea that somehow coincidentally.
I'll pull that all in. It was a coincidence. It wasn't a joint idea. And I smell the presence of Martin Fowler in the background, who's, never admits to having helped do anything, but in fact helps do lots of stuff. So shout out to Martin, who's probably going to see this. All right, I'll just go ahead and get started. And I did this, at the 20th year anniversary. But this is really the little known history and my personal view. People go like, why did it work, right? We have 17, middle-aged white males, some type A, all, mostly published. How on earth could they not like rip each other to shreds, but could actually get an agreement, like that? And that's the interesting question that, many of us have trying to work on. So what I like to say is there were, as far as I can tell, for me, this is formative. There were three communities of conversation in the 90s with an overlap of the people. And it was the fact that there was some practice in dialoguing about topics throughout the 90s. And then this set of people who like were common across all of the communities, then, were kind of organizing and present at that meeting and kind of, instantly set up the tone. And then everybody else was kind enough or smart enough to play in. And the three communities were the patterns movement group. This is very, very formative thing called Workshop on Object-Oriented Design, Wood, started by a guy called John Hopkins, who never gets any credit. So I just shout out to him every time I can. And then, of course, we've got the lightweight methodologies, group, and there was this overlap. So the first of those would be and probably the richest was the patterns community. And I came in late. I wasn't formative in that, but we've got in the formative group who formed that Jim Coplane, Ward Cunningham, Kent Beck, super formative. There was another guy who I'm going to get all annoyed because I can't remember his name. But some of these people were reading, very wide reading group. And someone read, could be Richard Gabriel. I don't know who was the first person, was reading Christopher Alexander, who's an architect. And he was one of the few ever theoretical architects. And in the 70s, he wrote this incredible masterpiece called The Pattern Language. And the word pattern comes from that. And it bothers me because to me, a pattern is a static visual thingy on the wall. That's a pattern, it's static. But he used it across projects. He said, I just keep seeing the same things over and over. The projects, there's a pattern of the way we solve problems across time. And he gave them names. And, it's something, he was trying to make everything very human. And the only one that I ever remember and quote all the time, it's light on two sides of a room. So if you only have light on one side of a room, you've got a cave, right? And it just feels dark and you have to light it up. So whenever you get a chance, to try to make it feel better, it doesn't matter if it's this way or this way. And here comes Sole and Richard Bowers are both here. So good, we had them. So he had an entire book, like it's an incredible thing. He cataloged big at the city level, down to the floorboards and how you put the trim on things and how they all interwove. And the ideas were just things that you would think about and try to solve for being light on two sides of the room is my favorite one. So one of those people, whether it was Ward, Kent, Jim, or Richard Gabriel, got into that. And they started, the person, I can't remember his name at this instant, wanted to do a thing called the architecture handbook or micro architecture handbook. And he got involved in this. But anyway, Richard Gabriel was getting his master's in poetry. And he said, instead of having a conference, we should do a writer's workshop like they do in literature. If you're going for a master's in literature, you don't give a talk about your book or your poem or your whatever. You workshop it. And the rule of the workshop is the author is not allowed to say anything, but is only going to listen to people's reactions. So the people read it and then they talk about it, right? And then the writer just take notes about like what was the effect of this writing on the readers, yeah? And so they built a workshop, and the first one was, I think, 1994. And I wanted to go so bad, and I was just too late to rearrange my schedule to go. So I think the first one I went to was 95, and I went 96, 97. They started one in Europe. So I went like every year to this thing. And the point is they didn't evaluate like, was this a good idea or a bad idea? They just said, does the person communicate his idea or not? So we got a whole bunch of people, and guess who was there? So Ward Cunningham, Kent Beck, Martin Fowler became a center person there. I went every year, and I'm trying to remember who else. And so that got this tone, the way of examining and turning, and Ward Cunningham brought in wabi-sabi from Japanese, art aesthetics. And Jim Copleen brought in social networks and social network theory. So really wide-ranging group of people discussing these things. So that started in like, I don't know, 93. And so the Design Patterns book came out in 93 or 94. So like they were right on top of it. And that was actually a micro architecture catalog as far as I'm concerned. So that was one group, and you'll hear those names. Now, the one that was surprising and people don't know about was called Workshop on Object-Oriented Design, WOOD. And that was started by this guy, John Hopkins. And I had just moved to Utah, to Salt Lake City in 1993. And in February of 1994, I heard about it, and I had met Ward Cunningham, and it was a who's who. I don't know how he got these people. And he had Ivar Jakobsen and his daughter, and he had Adele Goldberg from Smalltalk and Kenny Rubin. He had Larry Constantine, who had gone off in psychiatry and come, or psychology, and come back. And I was there. Martin Fowler was there. Jim Rumbaugh was there. I mean, like this was like the who's who of object-oriented people. And Martin Fowler was brand new. Like he had just come into the country at that time. And he's famous for his introduction was, I'm the only person in this room I've never heard of. So like Martin loves to play low. But the format is the magical format, right? So it was at Snowbird, and almost everybody skied. I don't know if there was anybody who didn't ski, why they would bother to go. So I asked Ward if I could gate crash because I was living at the bottom of the ski lift, and he said sure. So I was really like unknown, didn't know why I was there, but I had read all of the people, and the way John organized it was we had a morning session from, I don't know, I'll just say 9 to 12 or 8:30 to 12:30, 4 hours, and then lunch. And then we all got an afternoon ski pass, from 1 to 4:30, and we skied at 4:30, and we had another 2-hour meeting, like from 5 to 7, and then we went and had dinner, right? And then drinks or song or whatever you want after that. And we did that 2 days in a row. And the agenda is just, what does anybody want to talk about? What's a thing? And so that year, Ivar talked about use cases and so on, and then we did things. And then the next year he did it again, so that would have been 96, I guess, if my numbers are right, 93, 94. I got 94, 95, 94, 95. So 95, he did it again, and Ivar wasn't there. And this is where kind of user stories started. Little side note here, because nobody understood what Ivar had said. And everybody had a different interpretation of what is a use case. And I had been working for IBM and decoded use cases, but I couldn't publish it because it was IBM top secret, competitive advantage to write a use case this way kind of stuff. And so I remember I wrote a paper afterwards. There were at least 11 different interpretations of what is a use case in 95, all by people who were writing journal articles. So Jim Rumbaugh wrote what he thought a use case was, and I did mine. And Kent Beck, I completely remember this. And Martin Fowler said, I think that later he goes, I think that use case is just Swedish for scenario, something like that. And Kent Beck said, it's way too formal for me. I just like to write something on a card and walk down and ask the user what they want. And we were going like, yeah, but what if they conflict? What if the different users say different things? Go and ask them. So that was the precursor to the user story, was just write something in a card and go ask the people and don't bother writing all these documents. So that was 95. But that was the format. So 96, 97, we didn't meet. And I was in Norway in 98. So I organized another one of these things on the boat that goes through the fjord in Norway, the Hurtigrute, shout out to the Norwegians. And Trygve Reinska was there, Rebecca Wirsbrock was there, her hubby Wirsbrock was there, Ward Cunningham was there. So you get this overlap, right? And so to get to the manifesto, so that was 98, no, 99, 2000, we didn't do anything. I said, it's time to do this again. And so obviously I was going to do exactly like John Hopkins and do this thing exactly the same. And I had the usual suspects, as I call them, on the list, and it was going to be Snowbird. Exactly. And as you well know, John, the best ski time in Snowbird is the second, third week of February. That's when the wind blows across the lake, dumps all the snow. And yeah, every time we had the wood, we actually got snowed in on the second day. So all was the second day. Nobody came up the canyon, and we had the mountain to ourselves, whoever was at the hotel. So obviously I picked February 11 to 13 as the days to do this, right? That was like a given, or that week, right? And the format 100% the same. We're just going to do blank slate. What do you want to talk about? Dot vote, make a schedule, whatever. All right. So that's two of the communities. And the third one was obviously the lightweight processes group, right? So here we had, Rebecca Wirsbrock doing her stuff, Martin Fowler, whoever, whatever the groups were at the time, I can't remember, like all of them. And apparently, Bob Martin had a chat with somebody, and they said, I think there were two of them. We don't know who the other one was, but literally, I'm about to organize this, and I get an email from Bob Martin. He says, I think a bunch of us sound about the same, but it's not a good word, lightweight processes. I would think we should write a manifesto. So he said the word manifesto very clearly in his email. And he had an invitation list, like 35 people. He had who wrote Peopleware? DeMarco. He had Tom DeMarco in. He had all these people like there. And I said, well, his topic is better than my topic, and his invitee list is better than my invitee list, because I only have the usual subsects, right? So I just throw in with him, right? And then Jim Highsmith was living in Salt Lake City. And so Bob, of course, suggested that we meet in Chicago. But if anybody knows what Chicago is like in February, you do not do anything in Chicago in February. It's like the wind off Lake Michigan, it freezes, and we're just going, and we're all busy, we're traveling everywhere. And go, no. And so Jim Highsmith, this is, scuttlebutt level, information, looked at each other and going, I'm not going to Chicago in February. I'm not going to Chicago, So we both basically just sat and said, we'll host it in Utah at the ski lift. If you want us to go there, it's going to be in Utah. And by the way, we'll do the organization. So, that kind of one. And so that was the basis. And so the format that we followed was, guess what? John Hopkins from Wood, right? So 4 hours, in the morning, lunch, ski, discussion. So we had that 4-2 combination, 2 days in a row, all the rest of it. So that's like why the communities of conversation was so important, right? We get these 17 men. Guess who was in the room? Ward Cunningham, Kent Beck, Martin Fowler, me, right? At least us four. Bob Martin also had been in the patterns and XP and all of that. So we had this style of working, that style of talking that had been established, right? I had never met Ken Schwaber, Jeff Sutherland. I didn't know James Grinning. I didn't know John Kern, right? And then me attempting to do my little diversity thing, right? Why was they were all Americans? Was I had met somebody from DSDM. DSDM was English and Dutch, and they gave their most theoretical person, Ari van Bennekom, a call and said, "There's something important happening at Snowbird. Like, get your ass over there." So he literally flew in, stayed like a day and a half, and then flew out. So he was there. That was the closest I could get to being international. Couldn't get any women, Latinos, nothing, but I got at least one Dutch person. And then you came representing the Australian methodology groups. That's as close as we got to having Australia in there, doing that stuff. And so that's the background. So we had then the 17 people who came. Then and people get upset there were no women, but there was literally only one woman qualified to be there, and that was Rebecca Wirfsbrock. And she'd been in all the other places, and she was on my list, and I didn't notice she wasn't there. And I apologized to her every time and kicked myself. Adele Goldberg was out by that time, and there really wasn't any other woman in the methodology space. But Rebecca Wirfsbrock was, clearly inside, inside the envelope. So
Yeah,
that's the
remember.
background I've got to before the meeting starts. So your turn, John.
Yeah, it's funny. The one tweak I would say is probably because it was memorable for only me, but my part of the story about where should we meet was Anguilla in the Caribbean. I don't know if that was Dave Thomas.
That was Dave Thomas proposed that one,
Yeah,
but it was too
or
late. We'd already
Snowbird.
anchored on Snowbird and go now. We're
Yeah,
good.
which is great. But yeah, my memory was, no, it's because I'd been there for my honeymoon. It's the only Caribbean islands I've been to, and it's like a pain in the ass to get to. So yeah, and I wanted to ski. So yeah, it was awesome that you guys were there. And the cool thing is I'm a pack rat. So I'm going to post a little, my Flickr has Alistair's paper, like he printed stuff out, he handed it out. It has photo of the original lightweight. Like when you go into a hotel and you're wondering where your conference or your meeting is. So there's, that sort of thing. And there's ski photos because the first day, and I hadn't been skiing in about 6 years because we had twin girls, so we stopped skiing with our son for a while. So I was looking forward to the skiing, and I remember we go up to the top Mineral Basin. I'm watching Jim and Alistair, clear expert freaking black diamond skiers. Hey, you gonna go? Like, no, dude. Literally, I'm coming from the East Coast, crappy icy skiing, first time in Utah. No, I think I'm going to take a green down to start. Thanks you very much. I'll see you later. And they
And it was snowy, of course. And I had at
Oh,
that time, I had a onesie. I learned that in Norway. You just wear a onesie top to bottom.
And I saw like something that I hadn't seen since the skiing, on the East Coast. I'm seeing you putting on like runaway straps. I'm like, who uses that? I was like, oh, it's because you all got powder.
Powder.
Yeah. And you bury your skis, don't even know where they are.
I've done that. I lost one that way.
Yeah.
So now, how did you get invited? How did you even hear about it?
Because of Peter Code and the feature-driven development and what we did it together, together soft UML modeling. Yeah, kind of in that
So you were kind of representing like three different things. You were representing Peter Code, FDD, your own thing. What was the Australian one called?
You're thinking
FDD.
of
That's FDD, feature-driven development.
Yeah, like Jeff DeLuca was from Australia.
Jeff DeLucas, right?
Right, he worked with us. They had done some project in Singapore.
So how did Peter Code? So Peter Code must have been on Bob Martin's invitation list.
That's my. Yeah, I think Peter said, "Hey, John, this is something you should go to. This is awesome." Yeah, well, he didn't.
Now these people don't know. I was in Munich, so none of us knew anything about John, and John didn't know anything about us. But tell them how you were working. He was in St. Petersburg, Russia. He told me this. What was your setup? Like, why were you in St. Petersburg, and what was that about? Because you told me, and it was
that's where, so we had a development group in St. Petersburg. So I lived there 2 weeks a month and helped do the product development.
Now, okay,
project.
you left out the important. I'm gonna fix this for these people. You told me like probably over a beer. So the way that John, like I'm a methodologist, I write down, here's an idea, here's the methodologist. John doesn't do that. He was developing and they wanted him to do something remote. And he just basically said, nah, we're going to work this way or I'm not showing up. We're going to be co-located. We're going to explain that a little bit, what you just needed them to be or do.
Well, yeah, certainly from a, yeah, we mostly are all doing remote now, sadly, but certainly from a, I would say a more optimal way is in person. So it was a great opportunity to be able to sit with the team, direct product ownery stuff. And it was a little hard on my wife and 3 kids because I was traveling a lot, because it wasn't like I didn't travel at all the other 2 weeks of the month. So I would often go out and visit clients and get more, either bounce my feature ideas off them or get some ideas from. So yeah, I was basically doing what we preach, in the Agile Manifesto. It was being co-located.
And you had you had an environment that allowed you to reverse code back and comment and things.
It was, the actual tool was amazing. In terms of, I actually remember sitting with Bob Martin and showing him kind of TDD, except via the tool and the ability to write, like almost diagram out your sequence diagram, but it's the code. And it's like, watch, I can run it now, the kind of thing, testing and things like that. So yeah, it was a phenomenal product and people still hit me up about it. Like, oh yeah, that was awesome. I love Together Soft UML. But yeah, those days are gone. People, I guess, don't architect or model anymore using stuff like that.
So my point for any watching is like, I'm like a theoretician guy and I go, why does this work? And John just says, I ain't working no other way. Just work this way. Shut up or I am not there. Right. And then when we all talked about it, he goes, yeah, well, that's what I do. Well, that's what I do. Well, that's what I do. Hey, so can you write to Georgia and see if you can get him to join? I don't know where he is.
And I'll say another thing that I did in the beginning of, literally the beginning of 2000, was we were building another product, and I even said I want to co-locate the team. So there was the office I worked out of, a very idyllic, the Academy of Sciences on Mendeleev Street, which is the Table of the Elements guy, and so I lived in the heart of beautiful part of the tourists. My colleagues always reminded me, of course you love St. Petersburg in the winter, because your sidewalks are plowed and cleared. But so I brought folks from our main office to have a co-located team. Everybody. I remember arguing with the QA. It didn't matter if I'm a co-founder or not, which I like. I don't want to pull rank to get my way, so to speak. I want to have it make sense and be logical and fight for the right answer. That was another very first time I brought from technical writers. I want you to hear from the very beginning of the features and the idea of the product. I want everybody to understand this vision. And so that was something I kind of pioneered for the first time in that way of literally dragging people, sitting them next to each other. And the most awesome thing was to see the blossoming of devs realizing that having QA in the same, literally within arm's length, they became, oftentimes they were like, I forget, what did we specify for this? Even though I told you, kind of what I thought, like they, just that synergy, it is the manifesto in real life, right? The individuals in collaboration over and I'm a process and tool freak. I sold tools, built tools. So yeah, thanks for recalling that. I didn't even think to mention something like that. That was in the early days.
Yeah. So the point is you were living it. So when we all discussed it and wrote it, but not that way. It's this way, right? You're doing like that. And I think people should recognize that.
And also my DoD. So I built software for, Defense Department, and where I was first sort of inculcated with the heavyweight mill standard specification for software. And that was another beautiful part of my career in that I said, nah, this is bullshit. I'm a taxpayer. Doing process for process sakes is stupid. So, part of it is, of course, my attitude of being a little, let's just say, irreverent about power and structure. But nonetheless, that was also, if you think about the second, the second, third, and fourth bullets on the manifesto, from the perspective of some guy who was fighting giant bureaucratic, huge process, I learned, no, you know what? It's better to get a good rapport with the customer than it is pissing over some stupid document. It's better to adapt than it is making sure you follow the plan. So there's wonderful lessons I had right at the right time for that gathering that we had.
So to jump then to my perception, it'll be interesting to check in with your perception. My perception of the meeting that I always talk about is this. First of all, historically, it's 17 individuals. So like we had XP was represented there and Jim's, Adaptive and my Crystal and your FDD and the pragmatic programmers were there. But that's only kind of in name and broad categories, because literally there were 17 experienced people, and you get like James Grenning and he does hardware. Yeah, he knew XP. He sort of at the time was in the XP camp, but he's bringing his and yeah, Bob Martin is in the XP camp, but he's bringing all of his Bob Martin stuff, And Ari was bringing not just DSTM, but all of his Ari stuff, right? So it's really important that people get it was 17 individuals. Like nobody was like, well, XP says this, I mean, even maybe Kent, but that's all. I like that. And that's very important. So my recollection of the history and sometimes I leave out things, but so Bob Martin stood up, smart guy, and he said, I think that we have something in common, and I think it's we should write a manifesto, and then was smart enough to sit down, right, and not to try to run the meeting, right. And then as my recollection is, somebody goes, we're sitting like in a circle or something like that, and somebody says, well, how do we build an agenda? And then somebody who's an extreme programming person, of course, all the XP people had index cards everywhere, all over their body, because they wrote everything on index cards. So one of the XP people brings out an index card and writes and says, just write it on the card, and then threw it in the center of the room. So we had like 7 XP people in the room. 7 people goes pull out index cards out of their pockets. When I say, we established the social convention like from these prior communications, right? They're doing it, and the people who are like, like Jeff Sutherland or Ken Schwaber goes, can I have a card? And so we go, brrr, and there's a bunch. And my recollection is that somebody goes, well, how do we arrange this into an agenda? And somebody says, well, I guess anybody who cares does that, and anybody who doesn't takes a coffee break. Since I don't care, I took a coffee break. I've got no idea. And I come back and cards are stuck on the wall on the glass over there. I never looked at them. And then what was super important is like 10 minutes later, somebody says, hey, I have a change to the agenda. How do I get a change to the agenda? And somebody says, well, just go change it. And the person looks for him like this and goes, and changes it. Like, we have no idea who it was or what they did. And the point I want to get out of all of this was that the listening in the room, the genuine respect for everybody in the room was so high, nobody argued. Like, if you want to put something in and the whole thing was a group effort. To this day, hopefully, like, nobody knows who said what. And I love it that nobody says they said it. Like, whoever came up with the this over that, no doubt that was one person's, came out of their mouth. Whoever that is has never spoken up, because we all know the whole thing was a group work, right? And we signed off on 100% on every word on that, the values thing. So it doesn't matter who like articulated something or brainstormed something. And the fact that I have to say, somebody said this and then somebody said that, and I don't know who, and things happened and then things happened, right? Is crucial to the story. Like the fact
I
that
agree.
17 people could do this like in one day, to get that guy in one day is unreal. It's
It
unreal.
is. I 100% agree. it's the phrase that I've used is we left our egos at the door. And I usually say, I mean, not me, of course, because I didn't have one, but there were a lot of famous people in the room, like Uncle Bob. I mean, you guys are published. I was like, wow, I'm in the presence of all these folks. But yeah, it was that. And it's funny, I don't even remember the agenda part, but I do remember, I remember the circle. I remember Martin Fowler sort of leading a little exercise. I remember the cards, put some word in there. I think I put a word like honesty. And that have to do with the BS that is, fake project planning and all that kind of crap. That's not, we're not being honest to ourselves anyway. Those are the funny things that I remember. And yeah, it was an amazing accident of history. And people might wonder, well, how do you not remember all this? Well,
we didn't have a sense of history. Like we didn't record
Exactly.
it. We didn't take photographs. There was never a group photo at the end. There is no picture of all of us.
Right. Just my random photos. Cause my family calls me paparazzi. I'm, always taking photos. There's just those random photos. And,
but Ward's are the only ones in the room. He took 2 pictures in the room and he's not in the pictures, right? So Ward is in none of the pictures that he took. And he's, he's probably a little sore about it.
So I think that, that is, the beautiful thing is if you asked all 16 now, rest in peace, Mike Beadle. But the beauty is we do not have a consensus of anything because it was just something we did. We had fun. I think we produced something cool. And another way that I phrase it to help people understand, this was early 2001.
Yeah, February.
Those of you, all you youngsters who don't know what the .com was, but this was back when the internet sucked and it was just like, oh, movie reviews or book review, like crap. It wasn't, it was crap.
And Ward was the only one who could get us an internet to get us a website.
Right.
So he went.
And that's my kind of my joke is, as we're leaving after these 2 days, and Ward's heading out and of the room, and he's got his rollerboard. He's heading to the airport. He pauses. He turns around to the rest of us and says, "You think we should publish this?" And we're kind of like, "Yeah, why not? I mean, we did a thing. Why not?" I mean, none of that's true, but that's a way to express.
No,
we didn't know it would have an effect.
The only thing I got was when I was driving back home, right, driving down the canyon. I'm driving down and I go, oh, I think I better memorize that. I think I'm going to need to know that by heart, right? So I said, oh, crud. Okay, so now I start memorizing. So there was like no sense of that except when we're leaving, go, we did a thing. I think I better memorize that.
How about that? Yeah, that's cool. Yeah.
All right. So we did that half hour, like I said, of the, the backstory and, there's more that could be said about the running of the meeting, but at least for me, the important part is the 3 communities of conversation that led to it and the total absence of ego. Everybody, what I call generous listening, it's now on my Heart of Agile mug, right? The listening with such generosity. Like if I didn't understand what you said, I didn't criticize it. I went I'm not understanding what he's trying to get. Like there's something brilliant there. Like how do we find out what that is? Was everybody in the room acting that way?
Yeah, that was such an amazing thing. I mean, somehow it emerged. Maybe it's the altitude.
I don't know, but given the egos that were potentially present there, it's a mind.
And I remember also in the beginning we explained each other's our own methodology,
right?
And that's when I first learned about Scrum. Never heard of it, and so you can see on my Flickr my notes on Alistair's paper that he handed out. Like I took notes about everybody's methodology and kind of, Scrum looks like a cool outer loop project management for anything, and DSDM, never heard of that. Oh, it's interesting, So that's what I remember too. In the beginning was kind of like sharing in the hopes that we could do what Bob Martin wanted, was find, a bunch of object modelers. Pretty good chance we might be able to find the gist of a system and be able to model it. But yeah, that's another thing I remember in the beginning was just us explaining to each other kind of how we practiced, which was cool.
Yeah, I was always a bit sore because they couldn't tell the difference between Jim Highsmith and me. So we had to split 10 minutes. So Kent got 10 minutes for XP and you got 10 minutes for FTD, right? And Ari got 10 minutes for DSDM. And Jim and I had to split 10 minutes because they couldn't figure out what either of us was saying. And I was kind of annoyed.
That's funny.
And the other thing was at the very end, when we're looking at the manifesto, Jim and I look at each other because we know that the XP guys want that this applies to XP, right? And the Scrum, that this applies to Scrum. But Jim and I, what made us common is we were both in the multi-methods camp. Like there is no single methodology. You have to tune it and shape it. That's what made us common. And we looked at each other and one of us goes, that has to be in every project. That has to be in every methodology. That has to be across all. Like, I don't have a vested interest in any one, but that has to be in all of them. So that's what made Jim and me like a unit compared to the rest of the group. Hey, let's let people ask questions. We've done the half hour. Somebody must be. We know AI is going to enter the room. And we're not going to spend 30 minutes on AI, but we know AI will enter the room here at some point. I've already got 2 questions, but Gerard, you get to, how do I pronounce your name?
Gerard is okay. Gerard.
I do the French. I'm sorry, I give a French accent.
French, it's okay. I'm in France today. So
yeah. But how do you say it with your Italian,
Gerard. Gerard.
Gerard. Okay, good.
Yeah, Catalan. Okay, I have one question, and I want to say that I'm collecting the questions from the YouTube chat. So if anyone wants to ask questions, I will be sending to you at the end when the round is
You can put them also in the chat, ones you want us to look at, so we can all look at them when you.
Okay, yeah. So, but my question is, how did being the co-authors of the Agile Manifesto change your life?
Oh, like 100%. No, there's a certain, at the beginning, not much, right? Because I don't flog a methodology. So it didn't do much for me. It was more, I would say, like 10 years later, right? When other people are having to fight with the economy and get heard, I'm kind of a historical figure. I get a free ticket to at least be in a conversation, right? And then I have to sell myself. So it was that at the beginning, not much because I was doing use cases and object-oriented design, and I was selling crystal clear. Jean, did it make any difference to you to begin with?
Probably not. Same thing. It's a thing we did. And I went about, finished, Together Soft. We sold it. Yay. Founded some other companies, did some work, and just kept practicing. And when I saw sort of the Scrum CSM, when that monetization started happening, I actually checked out of the Agile community because I was like, all right, y'all are on your own. Teach their own.
Yeah, and the pragmatic programmers, Dave Thomas is really mad about that, right? He says, "I'm sorry, I helped write that sucker." I think we did a good thing, but
yeah, I shouldn't be sorry about the manifesto. It's enduring, and it will continue to endure. You can, it's a free country, caveat emptor, but I kind of like saw the writing on the wall that they don't get it. But like I think you said it, that once you put something out there, someone's interpretation, that's a problem with the manifesto.
yeah.
Grok it, you don't need it. But if you don't understand it, then you're looking for a process. Where do I start? Where's step one? It's just 4 stupid bullets. What am I supposed to do? So
I just found a video from 2024. Just yesterday, somebody put it out there, and somebody had said, the problem with Agile is whatever they said, and I put out a video that said the problem with Agile is people. Like the manifesto is awesome, but then we get these people show up and they have all stuffed full of personalities, and they want this, they want that, they're greedy, they want power, they want money. If it's a useful tool to help them, get money, they'll do it. It doesn't matter what the contents are. It's all these, people ruin our beautiful document, right?
Right.
So.
Like software would be easy if it weren't for all the people.
Exactly. Cool. Thanks. Now, Miloš, you dragged AI into the conversation.
Yeah, in a way. So basically, my LinkedIn feed.
Oh no, that was Elisa who did that. You tell what's yours. Say what yours is.
Yeah. Well, basically, my LinkedIn feed today has been, full of doom and gloom about the demise of Agile. So, and I ran into Jim Highsmith's post actually on LinkedIn, which made me smile. It was hopeful, for the future and kind of at peace with the past. And basically what he says is that the first 25 years were focused on how teams work. And the next 25 years will focus on how organizations think. So, and I kind of, that resonated with me. So my question is the manifesto with its 4 values and 12 principles enough to help us focus on how organizations think in the future with everything that's coming, the acceleration of communications and of work? And or does it need anything else? So it kind of latches onto what John just said a minute ago.
Yeah, I've simplified the Agile Manifesto to the heart of Agile, which is just 4 words: collaborate, deliver, reflect, and improve, right? And that fortunately is going to last longer than the manifesto because it's more general and simpler. The thing that struck me immediately when AI came out is the second value, which is working software. Yeah, you can have working software in an hour, right? And now what are you going to do with it, right? So the second value, in a sense, is like, so in a certain sense, it achieved the Agile, goal, in the sense that you could have software in an hour, 5 minutes or an hour. And then, of course, what'll come after that is how long is it going to take you to get feedback?
Yeah.
Because you can't collect feedback every hour. But in that sense, it was like I tell people, we were fighting for permission to talk to the customer and deliver every couple of months. That was our fight. It was, please let us at least talk to the real users and at least deliver them, right? So now with the AI, yeah, okay, you got that. That's fine. That's why we don't update the manifesto. That was the battle we were fighting at the time.
Mm-hmm.
The big deal was, can we co-locate, talk to each other, talk to the user, ship software and give feedback? That was the battle. So we wrote that with that. So you would never update it. It wouldn't even faintly look like that today because it's not the fight. So AI did that, snap, and then introduces a different set of things. So maybe there's a different manifesto that comes after a bunch of failures from AI. Now, John, you chip in on that because you already answered it a bit.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the era of AI and my experience with it is mostly through Replit.com and Claude. It's just freaking amazing. And yeah, a lot of times my thumbnail for being agile is reducing the gap in time between taking an action and getting feedback, whether it's micro test, BDD,
Right. There you are.
or with the user. So
right.
that problem goes away almost
Part of
immediately.
that goes away like this, right?
Yes.
And that other part stays.
Yeah, and then so the I think for me anyway, the calculus changes on how I do stuff. But for let's say the uninitiated, you'll get initiated pretty quick. I think AI exaggerates whatever you got going on. If you're really good,
right,
teams are good, and you can work with customers, it's freaking insane how fast you can go. But all the agile values still apply. They don't go away because they got to the essence of human behavior, I think. So
right.
to answer the question, what do you need to do with enterprises? Nothing we can say in any other publication will prevent whatever they do, because it's up here and it's weird human behavior that's motivated by things other than virtue.
Good. All right, who's next? Benjamin, do you have any questions stacked up?
I don't have questions. I have observations. I'm kind of nostalgic about all this because I got into it. I'm like, I was a little kid in Fort Smith, Arkansas, in the middle of nowhere, and I happened to be on BIX, Byte Information Exchange, and I got introduced to Strustrup and Copeland, and Sutherland was there, and I got early papers of Scrum, and processes were really cool. And I learned how to think about designing systems from Tom Gilb's book, Principles of Software Engineering Management. And and I had a whole lot of things about making tests, and I was using CRC cards. I was a C++ guy. I was a tech guy, and I was with tech teams. I wasn't so good on the soft skills as you might imagine. But when you guys came out with this, and then the techniques that fit the Agile philosophy, like test-driven development, and time boxing things, it just gelled things that like I had been doing parts of it, right? And I'd seen success doing parts of it, but wow, okay, now I understand why and how. And then I start, people were starting later on, people then argued about like, I hear Copeland and it confuses me sometimes when he's arguing. We'll say he talks about Agile and Scrum as if they're two different things. And I always viewed the execution of Scrum as an Agile thing. And now people are now screaming that Agile is dead. And I go, what happened? and usually when something is dead, it means something has replaced it. And maybe it's just, maybe Agile is dead. Maybe it's all of the certificates. Because I've always been completely against getting certified for Scrum or Agile things. It's never appealed to me. I've always found that it attracted the wrong elements, no matter how well intentioned, and people were very well intentioned for it. And so maybe
So I can Benjamin, I can riff off of the Agile is dead thing because I kind of watched that several times. But the last
I have a question for it to put it in the context.
Okay, yeah, go for it. What's the question?
If it's dead, doesn't that mean something has replaced it? Like what the heck? I haven't seen the next thing. Agile was the next thing. What's the next thing if it's not? And whatever the next thing is, how is it not going to be Agile?
Right.
It's going to be Agile.
We now know. I mean, if you'd said this like 2 years ago, before AI was a thing, I'd have one answer. Right now, AI is the thing. But my answer kind of goes like this. So the way something becomes popular is you go to upper management and you say, you guys are having trouble. The way to not have the trouble, you go over there and you do that thing and that fixes your problems. Okay. So from 2001 up until let's say 2021, 22, something like that, it was Agile, right? So, you guys are not Agile. You have to go over there. And then if you do that, then things will work, right?
Yeah.
Now, the reason that Agile was dead is because SAFe came out. Not only the Scrum certificate, but SAFe. And then the big corporations, spent 10, $20 million in training and fees and roles and, like everything. And a couple of years went by and nothing got better. So they hadn't implemented Agile because sorry, people, SAFe does not hold to the Agile values, right? Where's that collaboration and reflection and tuning and all that stuff. But I could not go into now an organization and say, you need to go Agile. I say, yeah, we already spent $20 million in 3 years. We're Agile. All I can say is, no, you're not. You're wrong, which is a crappy sales pitch, right? So if all you got is you're wrong. So there's no there anymore. Like they're not actually there, but they think they're there. So dead means, so they got really angry, right? And literally it's like, the big bosses don't want to hear the word Agile. They already spent 20 million in 3 years on it, did not deliver, do not show up with that word. And in that sense, it's dead with no replacement. That's how it can be, by the way, dead with no replacement. There is no better there. There still isn't. There isn't a better there, right? Now then, however, the new shiny over there is AI, right? And that's why everybody's putting the money on the AI. Oh my God, we got to go AI. AI will solve you having trouble, but if you go over there, it'll solve your problems. And over there is AI. So now AI is the new over there. Let's go. Let's keep it rolling. Let's keep it rolling.
The irony of that is to do AI correctly, you have to be able to specify things really cleanly, which means you need to be a good designer. And so design is coming back.
Yeah.
You have to be good. Not having to do design.
The prompts, it's prompt lawyering. Miloš, you must. Hey, Miloš, Georgie is there. Georgie, Miloš is in Belgrade, and I didn't know that, and we didn't have beer with him. So next time we have to meet up with Miloš. And Georgie's having trouble with his connection, so he might not say anything. So Miloš, turn on your mic, and what's the question?
To chip in?
Yeah, go. What's your question? Do you have a question stacked up?
Yeah, I had one more question, and that is, you mentioned 35 people were invited. Of all the people that didn't show up, do you think anything or anyone would have made a difference with the domain they came with?
No, that's a great question because we actually discussed that at the end. We were going like, so what are we, are we the signatories? Are we the authors? Like, how do we refer to ourselves? Do we update this? We had this discussion and somebody says, look, if even one person in this room were different, the whole outcome would be different. So we have a snapshot. We have a group of people. They said something. You can't update it because it'll be different people in the room with a different, connection, different chemistry, and they'll take it in different directions. You don't just update it, right? So that's one reason we never updated it, is it's a snapshot of a conversation of 17 people. Any change would have been a different, and we know that. I mean, you just think about it, like Rebecca Wirsbrock should have been there. If she'd have been there, it would have been a different conversation, right? Stephen Meller, was a heavyweight process guy. We didn't know why he was there. If he hadn't have been there, it would have been a different conversation, right? So swap out any person and the outcome would have been different. Now I'm going to ask, I'm just trying to make sure for the time, like we get everybody. Richard, are you interested in turning on your video? Not that you have to, but you're welcome to.
I wish I could, but unfortunately I've got a whiteboard behind me and this blurring isn't good enough to knock out the work stuff.
Okay, good enough. So
I mean, the advantage of that would be at least I could show you that there are people still doing diagrams for architecture. Back to the comment earlier about does anybody do it? Unfortunately, it's on a whiteboard that back to the other comment about the corporate stuff you can't share. That's what I got back there. So sorry, but appreciate the conversation.
Do you have any kind of questions you want to put on the table and hear us riff about?
Unfortunately, unless you can magically convince people that SAFe by itself isn't good enough to be Agile, that's that all resonated, but I don't think you've got the magic words to fix that right now.
No. It's all a power thing, right? So the people have got. Look, I ran into this before 2000 when RUP was the thing, and I get a call from an executive from some place. And I'm doing you got to tune your methodology to the people, And he said, now we're going with RUP. That was the precursor to SAFe. Hang on a second. Okay. There's a precursor. I said, well, no, you have to tune it. Now, RUP was like the joy of cooking with all recipes known to mankind. And the first step in RUP was you were supposed to tune it and tailor it and shrink it to your team. That is step one of official RUP. Because Ivar Jakobsen was there and he knew to do that, and that was part of his core was it was a meta methodology and you're supposed to tune it. Not that most people did. Most people just took the joy of cooking and thought they had to cook every recipe from page 1 to page 500, right? So I say to this guy, well, you really need to tune the thing. He goes, no, we got RUP so that we wouldn't have to tune the methodology. Right.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking about that answer. I go like, oh my, how do I put my head into that space? And this was my justification for that answer. Okay. So you're an executive at a large company. You're one of the top executives, and you've got a couple $1 million bonus riding on the line, and you've got three assignments. You're supposed to reduce costs, increase profits, and install a corporate-wide, worldwide methodology. So you go to your favorite consulting firm and they know your budget limits and they say for 10 million, we'll install your corporate methodology. So you go, check, one done. Now I go focus on reducing costs, increasing profits. Like there's no attention span for that, for this methodology thing. So anybody who's installing SAFe goes, yeah, I got to do this thing for a mere 10 or 20 mil. I'll get these guys to come in and they'll take it over and now I can put my attention on other things that affect my bonus or whatever. So we'll never convince people about anything like that. So that's my model for why people do that. Now, who hasn't asked you? Geronimo, Fernando, I'm looking for a question.
Sure. One thing I would like to ask you both is back in the late 90s and very early 2000s, the focus was very strong on improving speed of development and avoiding delays. And
increasing speed of what?
That was something, sure. And that was something that, lured us towards agility because we felt that was the step in the right direction, okay? But nowadays, 25 years later, speed is no longer as big a problem as it was 25 years before. So What do you think is a key for adopting agility nowadays? Okay, because it's not we're not going to improve. It's not going to help us as much as it did to improve our delivery time. Would you say collaboration?
Yeah, it's when I go in these days, it's around the collaboration and reflection, more on the delivery. Now, most of the places I go, they don't deliver well anyway, so they can always use some improvement of that. But I go in with the collaboration cards, and the solution focus micro improvements tend to be strong. Although I'm doing a really good business with the elephant carpaccio these days, the slicing, and currently it's still the case with the AI that the slicing is important just to keep the thing on the tracks before it goes wild.
I would kind of wrap that into the effectiveness is kind of what I'm after.
Yeah,
Rambo, is the effectiveness in delivering value to the customer or user, whoever you want to call it. That's my goal.
You bring in the feedback aspect.
Yeah, and because moving faster, building the wrong thing, who cares?
Yeah.
Moving faster, spending too much money, building too much of even the right thing, who cares? Right. So it's the one of the hardest things that I find to try to help people learn is because our entire lives are all about more is better and getting a good grade and all that crap. When the reality is, if you can learn to do the smallest thing possible, which that's written somewhere, and I often add on, think of the smallest thing you can do and do uncomfortably less, because trust me, I bet I can do it smaller than you. And that comes to that effectiveness, because sometimes that's enough and you get some feedback. And if it's not enough, you already know what you need to do. But, okay, I can always add more, but I can never get back the time I wasted building too much. And if you built too much, you never got the feedback that it was too much right? So in a nutshell, that I think is how I would answer.
Hey, Sole, you haven't said a single word so far.
Hey, yes, well, I have some questions, most already answered, but I would like to ask both of you, in 10 years from now, what would you like to see that out there in the world, in the organizations, in the way with all the comment and back and forth that we have today on the wave of implementing agility? What do you like to see that resonates with that original manifesto from 10 years from now?
You want to pick that one up, John, first?
Well, might sound silly, but I don't think I want to see anything particular. I mean, it's just like what we've done in the first place. People will abuse it, misunderstand it, not try to. So all I'm happy to see happen are running into pockets of people who get it, use it, love it, and it produces business. Because if agility is flourishing, business is flourishing, and it can be a secret weapon for those who get it. So that's my, what floats my boat, so to speak, is when people rock it, use it, and love it, and live it, because it's hard. It's the hardest methodology, if you want to call it. It's the hardest mindset to have. All the rest is simple because you're following some stupid process with no brains. This requires you constant vigilance, constant partial attention. It's hard to do. I wish I could consult with myself. It's much easier telling someone else, like, I think you should do a little, so that's my view.
And for me, I'm always don't predict the future. I'm useless at predicting the future, as my stock portfolio shows very clearly. But what I would say is almost every company, if not absolutely every company I've ever visited, is like a split brain patient with the business here and the tech here. And I've been going since the 90s, since I ever started trying to get the business people and the tech people to work properly together. Like that's just my goal, like crazy level. So if we even just stay inside the topic of agility, so that's why I'm now going into the, you know, the collaboration cards, the micro improvements, stuff like that. I think that even with the AI and pop in here, Milos just asked, is there a danger that AI just makes too much? And I see the people bragging online about how many dozens of features they can get done, you know, per day or per week. And we know that Jeff Patton and Gabrielle Benefield are like features are to a business as lines of code are to a program. Like more is not better, more is worse, because then you have to maintain them and do things. So this like we can generate, you know, 10 to the nth features per month or per week that's coming from AI is hazardous, right? So now we're getting back into the slicing, but in a different way. And what John says, which is the steering that happens. But I, you know, I'm a little bit indifferent to all of that. My heart is really getting the business and the tech people to just talk together, you know, well, then I'm a happy camper. If I go to into a place and they're working better than they were before, more humane, better, you know, patience and less fear, more trust, then I'm happy. And then we had a dangling question on AI. Will AI do that or not? Is AI going to help that? That was Elisa Laurel. Is AI going to help people come together? Or is it kind of actually get people to pull apart? And I see it pulling people apart more than pushing it together. So the question for me over the next while is going to be, how can we get the power of the AI without pushing the people too far apart? That's going to happen anyway. But to get the good results, the small, keep things on track. So chopping, you know, slicing, carpaccio, feedback, for me is going to be an effort. And then if you've got the super intelligent thing churning out features, who are the people who are taking responsibility and accountability for selecting which features to actually inflict on the public, right? That's going to be, because bots don't have legal accountability, right? Or this to the stock market, right? So that's going to be who's taking accountability for this, you know, set of features. That's mine. Now we have Fernando is the last person left. Thank you, Fernando.
Okay, thank you very much, Alistair. Well, agility helped free organizations from things like bureaucracy, heavy processes, unnecessary overhead, and too much focus on intermediate artifacts instead of the final outcome. However, do you think that in some cases, some people went to the other extreme for dismissing aspects that are actually important? In case you think so, which aspect do you believe should be restored to their proper place?
Like what? I blinked because the second half of one sentence had the thing we had to actually answer. What was the thing we have to answer about?
Okay, do you think that people dismissed some aspects? I don't know, for instance, good requirements or other things in the name of agility that you think should be restored to their proper place?
Yeah, well, I'm like a guy who only has one drum and I keep hitting the same drum. And it's the first value of the manifesto, individuals and interactions over processes and tools. And Richard, you have you have a publicly viewable background. Good for you. Thank you. Yeah. So Agile came to mean quick delivery. It came to mean the delivery aspect, right? The second value working software. Everybody was like incremental development and deliver fast. But Agile equals incremental development and deliver fast, right? Which is part of it, right? But the individuals in interaction, the collaboration got dropped because they wanted to split things and deliver fast. So, you know, I'm the same guy always and over. Just go put that one back in.
Yeah, and I would say the idea of, oh, this means we don't need to document anymore or whatever. There is no one right answer, Fernando. It's basically you need to do the right thing, or I'll keep saying it, or slightly less in your context. Like I hope, a simple, like I used Replit to build an art criticism machine, funny thing that I could care less about, in 6 languages. It's not going to kill anybody with a really bad review of a piece of art. But something that I hope is running a nuclear reactor, they might take a little more care. So, it might have a little more compliance document. I don't know, but like I said, Agile is hard because you've got to use your brain to figure out what is the right, most lean, most effective way to achieve the goals that you're looking for. So,
we got a couple of questions in here in the chat that I'm gonna just pick up, and John, you just riff in if you want, because some of these don't need too much. Craig Coburn, by the way, a relative of mine, evidently, because he has the same last name as I do, in Scotland with the same spelling, so obviously somehow related. Writes, he said, love the concept of getting great thinkers and doers together to solve problems. Why doesn't this seem to happen more often? Never mind trying to do Agile, just this more often. And a thing I just want to put on the ground here is, as far as I know, there's only been 2 times in history that people got together and asked, what is it we do in the software world? And the first was the 1968 NATO conference, where they did have a sense of history and they recorded it, and you can find the entire transcript of the entire, like, I wish we had that. It would be so much fun to actually listen to the arguments, but they have that. And I encourage everybody to read it, because the people described what they thought engineering meant, and they're wrong. That isn't what engineering means, but it's what they thought it was, and it's a nonsense. And then they described what they did, and it was this very, I won't say Agile, but it's very human, informal communication, feedback-centric thing. Now, mind you, they were dealing with specs and slow compilers, and time frames were different. You couldn't do, nano incremental development or something. But you listen to they said, like, one of them said literally, like, it's a great idea to have someone on the team who's just a gossip. And then they go around and they're telling everybody what everybody's saying, and you get this diffusion of information that comes from having a gossip, right? I mean, oh my God, it's right in there. Like you have to have that, a gossip around, right? Now, when they go to engineering, they get it all wrong, and they say, and by the way, in the preface of that document, they say that now something just came in here. Okay, sorry. They say that we decided to use the word software engineering as a provocative term to see what would happen if we tried it. So they didn't announce in 1968 that software was engineering. They said, what would you think about if we said it was engineering? And then they had that conference, right? So that people, they got what is engineering wrong. They riffed off of it wrong. The industry went that way, but in fact, what they themselves did when they talked about what they did, they had things like gossipers and whatever else like that. But they told me 2 times, and the second time was the Agile Manifesto. We said, what is it we do? And we wrote it down, but we didn't speculate. We just said, we do this. So I wish there would be more, of these kinds of meetings. By the way, I've been part of about 4 different meetings to write manifesto type things, and they all failed because of big egos, right? So really what we pulled off was remarkable just from the ego management. All right, we already picked this one up. Would you say one of the dangers of AI augmentation is that we're developing too much with these? And you said yes. Gabriel Benfield says yes. Someone said any link with agile manufacturing, and John said I never heard of it, and I never heard of it. But Jim Highsmith took me to his library and he pulled out a book with agile manufacturing. So people, he didn't ever bring it up, but there were people there who knew. There was a wide reading group of people. There were people in the room who knew things. See. Eve Henel says, is it correct that the second page was created later? Yeah, yes and no. So we did day 1 was the values, and my recollection of the evolution is like this. And I think of decimal places. You put pi is about 3, and then it's about 3.1, and then with a bunch more work, 3.14. It takes a lot of work to add a digit, right? So we do this thing and we talk, and then someone says, we probably need a name for what we're doing. And I happen to facilitate the brainstorming on that part, so I have some memory of it. There was a flip chart full of words, and we did things and dot votes and stuff like that. And at the end, someone goes, well, it's a nice word. What does it mean? I mean, does it mean anything? And so we did a bunch of stuff. We produced the values, and values are very general. Then people go, that's not bad. Is there any more we could say, like third decimal place, right? The third decimal place. And then we wrote the principles. Now, my recollection of the meeting is things started to come a bit unraveled because we could agree 100% on the values, but when you get down to daily practices, people really disagreed, really disagreed, like very, very much. And so we're writing the principles, and then also there's 12 of them. Ari gets on a plane, somebody else has to get on a plane. There's a lot of words. We can't wordsmith that thing, the same way. And so we got not bad while we were there. Then someone says, can we work on it by email? And you could imagine that completely doesn't work because of all of the rules in the manifesto. And there was a moment sometime, and I have a copy of it from like April, which I love because it was in two parts. It was customer facing principles and internal facing principles. And you don't see that in the final 12. And I occasionally circulate that. It's very, very, very nice. Somebody did that. But there was a moment, it's like, hey, this is taking too long. Whoever's got it, put it up there, whatever. Right. And so we got close in the room, and then the finalization was done by somebody.
Yeah, I remember you told a nice story when we were probably drinking beer in Munich or something about, even the little, your methodologies were a longer time scale than like a 2 weeks sprint or something like that. And I think you said, and Ward just in his lovely, calm demeanor said something like, can I interest you in, whatever the current phrasing is, you
I'll tell you what, because I do remember that, right? So Ward looks at me like I'm like a salesman with the bear grease in the hair and the heavy suitcases. Because I'm going like, I absolutely insist. And today, I even said it yesterday, every team must have delivered running tested software every 3 months. Now, by the way, John, I don't know if I was tricked by the XP people. They had 3-week iterations. I foolishly believed that meant 3-week deliveries. And it's not the case. They didn't deliver every iteration. They would deliver, took them a year for their first delivery. So their deliveries were not connected to their iteration length.
I would have got that wrong on the test too.
Yeah, I got it wrong. So I'm all thinking that they're doing 3-week deliveries, right? And mine is like, bottom line, nobody goes longer than 3 months. If you do better than that, you do better, but you cannot go longer than 3 months. So I have something up there, and he says, like, Ward's there at the flip chart, and he's got like a couple of weeks. And I go, I can't defend that. I can't defend that. I mean, you can survive with 3-month deliveries. I know it. I've done it. And you must have been right there at the time, because Ward looks at me, like I've got the salesman big briefcase and the bear grease and, Edwardian suit and all that wrong stuff. And he says, would it be okay to say a few weeks to a few months with a preference for the former?
Right.
Sure. Like I have no problem with shorter, but that was the kind of dialoguing we did, in the principles to get out of a bind. Whereas in the value one, we wordsmithed every single word. But that's how he didn't say you're wrong, you're stupid, of course, right? He just said, can we say with a preference for the former? And so that was that one. Let me see. Closing it out here. It's been long enough. I'm just skipping. Gerard, did you see any of the other ones in the chat or on the live stream that I haven't picked up?
No, I based all of them in our chat here in the.
That's good. So reference to the movie, we have enough info in this one thing to make the movie.
Yeah.
So anybody who's got enough tokens, go hit up your favorite AI generator and hand it this text. I propose even better than that. There's Notebook LM, which I haven't played with yet, and I insist I'm going to love it one day. I'm going to take my books papers, have Notebook LM and sell them on my website. It'd be like this. So I would take this script, push it into Notebook LM, get the dialogue, then ask the movie maker to make the movie off of that.
Yeah, it's funny.
Yeah.
Gerard just showed me a Notebook LLM generated like pitch deck. I was blown away by it, to your point.
I love it. Notebook LM, I've only seen one or two, and I saw the possibility, like I want all my articles, every single one of them through Notebook LM for sale for like 99 cents or 25 cents off my website, you know?
So you are behind because Jim Smith, Jim
Highsmith?
Yeah, is using it because I'm seeing some posts in LinkedIn and he's using the iconography.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Love it.
Yeah.
Hey, gang, I think we're there, right? It's been about an hour and a quarter. It's been a great discussion. Did anybody have one like last dangling question or topic we didn't touch on? Did we do? We kind of skipped over the AI a little bit, you know, lightly. AI is coming in such leaps and bounds, you know, any prediction's useless on that thing. But yeah, we touched it. I'll give a 5-second quiet countdown in case any one of you thinks of something we jumped over. All right, that's it. That was awesome. Thank you, everybody. And let's look forward to what happens the next 25 years.
Yep, there you go.
Thanks a
Thanks,
lot.
Okay.
Alistair. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Bye, everyone.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for coming
Bye-bye.
us.
Bye-bye.
Gracias.
And,
Great